My name is Beth Miller. I'm the Director of Laboratory Support Services here at our KCAS Bio headquarters, and I'm going to take you on a tour of our facility. We'll move over towards our badged door. This is the first line of security in our building. We have approximately 30 badged doors and just as many cameras recording who goes through those badged doors. After we go through, it'll take a picture of my face, and it will compare the picture that it takes to the picture that's located on my access badge. Front half of our building is dedicated to administrative space, and we'll move back towards the back half of the building to show you the lab spaces. We'll walk through our main break room. This is called the Sunflower Room, and it's one of the benefits for our employees. In this room we have coffee, tea, water, ice, and a small market that's available for our employees to purchase snacks and drinks from. So this is our Biopharma Sciences lab. There's a variety of instrumentation that lives in this lab, dedicated mainly to ELISA assays, plate-based assays, chemiluminescence, all the things that fall under the ligand binding assay group for our company. You'll notice that there are quite a few lab benches inside this lab. The space is outfitted for approximately 100 head count. Some of those spaces are taken up by instrumentation and computer systems. There are approximately 60 employees that work in this lab. We have a variety of platforms. We have 4 MSD instruments. We've got quite a few different plate readers. There are plate washers around the perimeter of the room, and a few liquid handling systems, some automated liquid handling. When we built this facility, it was purpose-built with modularity in mind. You'll notice that the power and the data come down from the ceiling and hook into the benches, so we have no power cords, no trip hazards on the floor. The benches are also on casters and are very modular. We're able to pick them up and move them to any other point in the lab, which allows us continued efficiencies and rearranging our labs in any way that we need to. This has turned out to be very beneficial to us as we've grown quickly since we've been in the lab. We've maximized the space quite well with that modularity in mind. And this is the wide angle of that same lab that we were just looking into. Gives you a little bit of an idea of the space that's here. It's quite a large lab. Around the perimeter of the lab, there's quite a bit of safety equipment, such as biosafety cabinets and fume hoods. We also have a lot of cold storage that is spaced out around the perimeter of the lab. Way back in the corner in the back, we have a dedicated balance room, and we also have a walk-in 2 to 8 degree cooler so that the analysts can take a plate shaker or a homogenizer, something that they need to work with cold, and they can take it inside that room rather than having to set up in a refrigerator. The lab behind me is our mass spectrometry bioanalysis lab. It's very similar to our LBA lab that we saw on the other side. These two spaces are mirror images of one another. They have the same layout as far as benches and instrumentation near the center of the room, and cold storage, safety equipment around the perimeter of the room. There are about the same number of employees working on this side of the building, and it's a very busy lab. This is where samples are prepared, whether that's via phase extraction or spin down, for mass spectrometry analysis, which comes as the next step after this lab. They also have a dedicated yellow light space in this lab. It's approximately 100 square feet, and it's outfitted for any lab procedure that might need to occur under yellow light to protect samples that are light sensitive. And this is the wide angle view of that mass spec bioanalysis lab. You'll notice behind me that there are a handful of UPLC instruments. We have 5 of those instruments in this lab. We also have a dedicated extra clean space for our dose formulation analysis group that works in this lab as well. Behind me here is our mass spectrometry lab. This lab houses our 40 various mass spectrometers. We are primarily a SciEx shop. We house a handful of older instruments, 4000s, 5000s, up through 7500s. We also have 4 new Thermo Fisher Orbitraps in this lab. As you can see, the data, power, nitrogen, compressed air all flow down from the ceiling in that same modular design that has allowed us to be very versatile in this lab. It's expanded rapidly, and we have a great layout in here. This is our server room. It is centrally located within the facility to give it extra protection against any sort of weather events. This is one of 2 doors in the building that I, as the Director of Lab Support, cannot open. That is for security. I can't open this room or the archive room. Here in the center of the lab is where we communicate from non-PPE areas into PPE required areas. These are also badge access controlled, and they are limited to the side of the business that an analyst works on. They'll only have access to the door that's relevant to the work that they are doing. We'll move first into the biopharma sciences side. You'll notice here that we have lab coats available for our analysts, as well as safety gear, safety glasses, and then some of our overflow supplies live out in this hallway as well. We'll move down to the end of this hallway in our radiation suite and our phlebotomy lab. Behind me is our radioactive lab. We work with very low energy radiation, only C14 and H3. This lab here is used for sample preparation only. We do have a liquid scintillation counter that we use to monitor contamination throughout our laboratory. This is our dedicated phlebotomy space. We also have a handful of employees on staff that are certified phlebotomists. This space is used to collect routine blood draws, as well as nasal swabs, skin tapes, urine collection, anything that we might use to prepare in-house matrices for sponsor studies that require it. Through this door is our molecular suite, mainly focused on cell and gene therapy. This is a unidirectional workflow system, and we'll walk through. The first stop for a PCR sample is this room, where nucleic acid extraction, purification, and quantification occur. This lab is dedicated to master mix preparation. There is a pass-through airlock that communicates between this and the next 3 labs in the unidirectional workflow. The second lab is for template addition, and again, this is the center stop between the 3 labs. Once the templates are applied, it passes through the airlock into the 3rd lab, which is where amplification occurs. This is our general supplies warehouse for the facility. Everything that comes into the building, whether it is reagents, consumables, supplies, or even study samples, comes first through the warehouse. We have a 0 entry dock so that an 18-wheeler can pull up and bring an ultra-low freezer, and we don't have to get out a pallet jack or use a lift gate. We also have a walk-up dock that's usually used for sample deliveries, premium couriers, things like that. Behind these doors is dedicated storage for our flammables. We have a large explosion-proof space we sometimes refer to as the boom room that protects our facility from any sort of explosion potential materials that we have on hand. Behind me are our nitrogen tank, which supplies nitrogen to the entire building, and all of our mass spectrometry instrumentation, allowing us to avoid having cylinders within our laboratory and giving us a steady flow of very clean nitrogen. Also is our 1,000-gallon diesel Rolls-Royce generator, which has the capacity to run our entire building for 24 hours and fails over within 7 seconds of a power drop. Through these doors is our central laboratory group. They manage our clinical kitting services as well as our sample biorepository. This area is where we store all of the supplies that we keep on hand for our clinical kits. We maintain everything from styrofoam packaging, specialty tubes, draw supplies, everything that we need to build kits for our clients to collect samples in the clinical setting. Our test materials management group handles all of our analysis samples, biorepository samples, reference standards, controlled substances, any drugs that are coming into the laboratory for study work. Everything comes in through our receiving department, but if it is a protocol-related sample, such as a study sample, it goes directly into the secure area for accessioning, management, and storage. This is one of the more highly secure areas of the building. Only people that are trained in our sample management procedures are able to pass through these doors. And once a sample is behind these doors, it is controlled throughout the life cycle as long as it is in our possession. Behind me is our sample accessioning area. This is where we handle all study samples. The entire life cycle of the sample is managed in this department. We use our Watson LIMS system to track our samples from the time they hit the door until they are all the way through analysis and back into the lab here. The way that we run our sample management, we are able to tell every single individual sample, the freezer that it is in, the shelf it's on, the rack it's in, the row, the box, and the position within an 81 position box. So we have total coverage. We know exactly where every sample is. Barcoding is used throughout the life cycle of the sample so that we manage seamlessly the movements of the samples throughout the building. Our Watson LIMS system is the system that's used by the analysts to request their batches. Those batches are gathered and racked in this lab and then are passed through this pass-through window to our analysts, where they take them out into the lab for analysis. They do have a 5-day window where they can have the samples out. They go into interim security storage as long as they're not on the bench, and then they're returned to the sample management area within that 5-day requirement. In this lab, we manage approximately 1 million sample touches per year. That's in and out and movement throughout the building. The storage capacity in this room for mainly -70 and -80 samples is approximately 30 units, about evenly split 50-50 between -70 and -80. We also have a 100 square foot walk-in -20 storage space for samples, as well as a handful of refrigerated units. So we're able to offer secure sample storage for any sample type. Through these doors is our uninterruptible power supply. This UPS powers the entire building, all of our mass spectrometry equipment, the majority of our cold storage, and most of our data acquisition systems. All power runs through the UPS into the instrument. It gets cleaned and normalized so that we don't deal with power fluctuations due to weather or surges, and make sure that all of the instruments stay on even if there is a drop in power. The generator can pick up within 7 to 15 seconds, but these do not have any failover time. They're immediately connected. Any instrumentation that is not connected to the building UPS does have an individually dedicated UPS so that we ensure we never have a drop based on power. This room is one of our 2 dedicated secure storage rooms. This is where analysts are able to keep samples while they're out for their 5-day allowance for analysis. There are -70 and -80 capabilities, as well as 2 -196 liquid nitrogen doors for sample storage while they're in use. I hope you've enjoyed the tour of KCAS Bio's Kansas City headquarters and get a chance to visit one of our locations in Philadelphia or Lyon, France.